What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm gonna do a penetration test with my 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum revolver, and we're gonna be shooting at some 1/2 inch drywall or sheetrock. And I got 89 sheets of sheetrock here that I screwed together in this wooden contraption. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna stand back 5 yards and we're gonna shoot into the sheetrock here, and we're gonna see how many sheets of sheetrock this 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum can penetrate through, okay? And the gun I'm gonna be using is my Smith & Wesson X-frame. This has a 6.5 inch barrel, and the ammo that we're gonna be using is the Hornady 500 grain flat nose soft point XTP, traveling at 1,425 feet per second. That's this one right here. And the other round we're gonna test is a buffalo bore bear load. This is a 440 grain hard cast bullet traveling at 1,625 feet per second. Okay, and this is made for bear defense. Now, I've done a lot of penetration tests already with these two loads here, and the last penetration test I did with sheetrock with the 500 Magnum was with some 5/8 inch fire resistant drywall. So I want to repeat the test with just normal 1/2 inch sheetrock that you would use for interior walls. This is just plain 1/2 inch drywall. There's no fire resistant properties to this thing. It's just basic 1/2 inch sheetrock. This is what most residential homes have for their walls, okay? The walls in your house in the United States have 1/2 inch sheetrock. And the purpose of this test is I want to see how many walls or how many houses it would take to stop a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum if I actually had to ever use this gun in a home defense situation, which I don't recommend unless you live in a rural area, because you're going to get some pretty massive penetration. But if I did have to use this for whatever reason for home defense, let's say I couldn't load my shotgun in time, or for whatever reason I didn't have any other guns available, and this was the only gun I had laying around. Let's say I just came back from doing a penetration test with it, and I set the gun down in my living room, and that happened to be the closest gun. How many walls would it take to stop this monster, okay? So we're gonna find out more or less how many walls or how many houses the 500 Magnum can go through with this test, okay? So you gotta figure that one wall inside of your house has 2 sheets of sheetrock. So based on how many sheets we go through here, we can do some simple math and we can get an approximate number of how many walls it would take to stop a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, and that's residential stick frame lumber walls, okay? Now, I've done this same test with the 44 Magnum, and just to give you guys a reference point, the 44 Magnum with 300 grain hard cast bear loads penetrated 32 sheets of drywall, which is basically 16 walls. Take a guess, put it in the comments down below before you watch the rest of the video. Take a guess, how many sheets do you think this 440 grain hard cast bear load is going to penetrate through? In previous tests I've done on 2x10s, this hard cast load penetrated through 9 2x10s, and my 44 Magnum with 300 grain hard casts penetrated through 4 2x10s. So this has double the penetration of my 44 Magnum. So I'm going to say at least 60 sheets. I'm going to say between 60 and 70 sheets for this hard cast. And for the soft point, I'm guessing the soft point will probably go through between 30 and 40 sheets. But take a guess. Put it in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Again, my 44 Magnum with bear loads, hard cast bear loads, penetrated through 32 sheets. So use that as a reference point. And again, we got 89 sheets of sheetrock here. And this sheetrock is really tight. It's not moving. Okay, I screwed it together here, so it's nice and solid. It's not wobbly. And we're gonna shoot from about 5 yards away, all right? So let's see what happens, guys. All right, guys. First shot is gonna be the buffalo bore 440 grain hard cast traveling at 1,625 feet per second. And this is the best penetrating 500 Magnum I've tested so far. And then we're gonna shoot the Hornady 500 grain XTP flat nose soft point traveling at 1,425 feet per second. And let's see what happens here, guys. All right, guys, we didn't get any pass through on the back, and we're gonna redo the buffalo bore hard cast because I hit a little bit too low and to the left. So I want to redo the hard cast and get the bullet a little bit more in the center rather than off on the bottom left, okay? So I'm gonna redo the hard cast now. Second shot with the hard cast. All right, guys, so I took the sheetrock back home and I want to go through every sheet with you one by one to show you guys exactly what happened, but I was really surprised at the penetration by the 500 Magnum. I was actually a little bit disappointed. I was expecting it to penetrate a lot more than it actually did, and in the beginning of the video, as you watched in the beginning, I mentioned that I thought it would penetrate 60 to 70 sheets of sheetrock with the 440 grain hard cast, and it actually only penetrated 40 sheets, okay? And the soft point penetrated 20 sheets. So it's really not that much more penetration than the 44 Magnum. So the official results were the Buffalo Bore 440 grain hard cast bare load traveling at 1,625 feet per second, penetrated through 40 sheets of sheetrock, and the Hornady 500 grain XTP soft point traveling at 1,425 feet per second, penetrated through 20 sheets. Okay, so it's still a lot of sheetrock, but it's not that much more than my 44 Magnum, and I'm going to attach a link up above if you guys want to watch the test that I did with my 44 Magnum. I shot a few different types of loads into sheetrock. I shot bare loads, and I shot expanding bullets and 44 specials into sheetrock, and I did a test with that. I did 2 parts, so I'll attach some links up above if you want to go and watch that. But when I did that test, the Underwood 305 grain hard cast bare load for the 44 Magnum traveling at 1,300 feet per second penetrated 32 sheets of sheetrock. So the 500 Magnum, okay, with the Buffalo Bore 440 grain hard cast traveling at 1,600 feet per second only penetrated 8 more sheets than the 44 Magnum with a 300 grain bullet at 1,300 feet per second. So I find it interesting that the bullet with the 500 Magnum was 140 grains heavier than the 44 Magnum, and it was 300 feet per second faster than the 44 Magnum, and it only penetrated 8 more sheets than the 44 Magnum, and obviously a lot more energy with the 500 Magnum and a lot more recoil though too. So it just shows you that the 44 Magnum is no slouch, you know, even with this Super Magnum 500. I call it a Super Magnum because that's what it is. You know, the 500 Magnum is really a Super Magnum. And I mean, even the 44 Magnum can still hold its own with these big Super Magnums of the modern era. And that's something to consider, especially if you're recoil sensitive and you can't tolerate the recoil of a 500 Magnum. You're better off carrying a 44 Magnum, you know, and using that for bear protection. But this test is not for pure comparison of penetration because the media is not good to use for comparing penetration because sheetrock is dry. There's no moisture in it. So it's hard to really do an adequate comparison with sheetrock between 2 different cartridges. But in my wood tests, when I did tests with 2x10s, Douglas for 2x10s, the 500 Magnum had double the penetration for soft points and hard casts than the 44 Magnum. So the 44 Magnum with the 305 grain hard cast from Underwood only penetrated 4 2x10s. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bore 440 grain 500 Magnum penetrated 9 2x10s, so it had almost more than double the penetration of the 44 Magnum inside of wood. And same thing with the soft point, the 500 grain Hornady XTP penetrated through 4 2x10s. Meanwhile, the 44 Magnum 240 grain soft points only penetrated through 2 2x10s. So based on the wood experiment that I did, the 500 Magnum had double the penetration of the 44 Magnum, but inside of sheetrock, it seemed to have pretty much the same penetration or just very slightly more, very little difference between the 500 and the 44 inside of sheetrock, okay? But inside of wood, I got double the penetration with the 500 Magnum. So I don't know if anybody out there has any ideas as to why that is, why the 500 Magnum only had a little bit more penetration inside of sheetrock, but it had more than double the penetration of the 44 Magnum inside of wood. I don't know why. It beats me. I'm trying to figure it out myself. I'm trying to come up with a hypothesis, but nonetheless, the results are, again, that the 500 grain Hornady XTP for the 500 Smith & Wesson penetrated through 20 sheets of sheetrock, and the Buffalo Bore 440 grain Hardcast penetrated through 40 sheets of sheetrock. So if I were to, let's say, use my 500 Magnum in a self-defense setting, which I would never do, just because of the recoil and concussion. You know, the concussion and the recoil inside of a house with that gun, you know, especially my gun has ports in it, is going to be tremendous, and it's going to destroy my hearing. But let's say for whatever reason I had to use my 500 Magnum inside of my house against a two-legged threat, and you know, let's say I just came back from doing a shooting test like this one, and this happened to be the gun that I had out on my table because I was just cleaning it, and I had to use a bear load. I would be considering the fact that the bear load would penetrate through 20 residential walls, and that's just simply considering the fact that it penetrated through 40 sheets of sheetrock, and there's 2 sheets of sheetrock for every residential wall inside of a stick frame house. So you figure 40 divided by 2 is 20. So that means the 440 grain bear load for the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum from Buffalo Bore would penetrate through 20 walls, okay, before slowing down. So you figure, you know, that's probably at least 5 or 10 houses, you know. Now, obviously, exterior walls are going to slow the bullet down because you have siding and plywood and insulation and piping and, you know, all kinds of stuff on the walls. It's not just sheetrock, okay, but you have to expect that this bullet's going to go far. You know, it's going to go through at least 40 sheets of sheetrock here, so at least a couple of houses. And then if I were to use the soft point, okay, the soft point still penetrated through 20 sheets, and that equates to about 10 walls, okay, and so that's still a lot, even with the soft point, okay. And I pulled the bullets out. I'm going to show you guys what the bullets look like in a second here, but I just want to go through all these sheets one by one. So very interesting results. Let me know what you guys think, why the sheetrock was able to slow down the 500 Magnum better than the wood was, and why the 500 Magnum didn't perform as well as I thought inside of the sheetrock. I'm trying to figure that out still. So I'm going to go through all of these. Now, we did have some outliers. I took 5 shots with the Hardcast and 1 shot with the 500 grain soft point. And the reason I took so many with the Hardcast was I just wanted to get a good, accurate representation. So I took a few shots. I took 2 that were like right in the same area, so that's why I wanted to redo these. So I took another one here and then another one here, so they're pretty spaced out. And then I had one flyer here because I was shooting fast and I didn't let the barrel cool down enough, and I had a flyer from a hot barrel because I was rushing to finish the test before it got dark outside and the range closed. So we had some outliers. For example, we had the one shot that I took up here actually exited out the left side, and I'll show you guys that in a second. It actually exited out the left side, and it penetrated through actually 42 or 43 sheets if you count the last like 4 or 5 sheets where it actually exited out. And then we had some here on the bottom that got stuck in the 36th sheet. Okay, but it seems to me like around 40, between 35 and 40 is pretty much what you would expect for penetration inside of sheetrock with the Buffalo Bore 440 grain Hardcast bare load. Okay, so I'm going to go through these one by one and show you guys what they look like. Here's sheet number 1. Okay, here's sheet number 2. Here's sheet number 3. You can see the hole on the soft point is starting to get larger as I get more into the sheets, and the holes for the hard casts stay the same size, and that's because the soft point is starting to expand a little bit here. So you'll start to notice the hole getting bigger and bigger. Sheet number 4. Here's sheet number 5. Look at how big that hole is now. That hole is like, it looks like a shotgun slug. Look at my thumb. I can fit my whole thumb in here. Absolutely massive hole. Sheet number 6. Look at how big that hole is, guys. And sheet number 6. Sheet number 7. Even bigger hole. Just totally blew out that sheetrock there. Sheet number 8. Sheet number 9. Sheet number 10. Sheet number 11. Sheet number 12. Sheet number 13. You can see the hard casts are still, the holes are still the same size, but you can see how big the hole is for the soft point. Sheet number 14. Sheet number 15. Sheet number 16. Sheet number 17. Look at how big that hole is now. It's absolutely monstrous hole. Here's sheet number 18. And here is sheet number 19. And here's sheet number 20. And I actually found it stuck here in the 20th sheet. It was like halfway out the back of the 20th sheet. And here's the 21st sheet, and you can see the big dent here. Okay, so looks like what happened was it was halfway through the 21st sheet, and it left this big dent. Look at that big dent in the 21st sheet. All right, so that was the 500 grain soft point 20 sheets, and you can see the hard casts are still going. Here's sheet 21 or 22. Here's a little dent from the 22nd sheet. Here's the 23rd sheet. All the hard casts still going. Here's 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and this is where the 44 Magnum Underwood 305 grain in my first test, this is where it got stuck at the 32nd sheet. 33, here's the 34th sheet. We actually had, if you look at the bottom of the 34th sheet, you can see the one that I shot down here, it went down and it exited out the bottom, okay? And here's the 35th sheet here. You can see how it exited out the bottom of the 35th. And here we found two of them were stuck in the 36th sheet, okay? They were stuck right here. So I'm gonna say about 35 or 36. They left these two dents here in the 37th sheet right here. Okay, you can see these two big dents here, and then we still have these two guys that are continuing to go. And so let's see what happens with those here. And I'll show you guys exactly what happened. Here's 38. There's 39. And so here's where I found our deepest penetrator. It was at the end of the 39th sheet, and it was stuck inside of the 40th sheet here. Okay, so I'm just gonna round up and say 40 sheets rather than 39. And then we also had the other one that exited out the side. You could see it's still going. Here's the 40th sheet. You can see it went out the side here. And let me show you some of the last two sheets here. And this is the 41st and 42nd sheet, and you can see that one bullet exited out the side there. So pretty interesting results. I'm gonna repeat this test with some soft points. I'm gonna test the 300 grain flex tip from Hornady that's traveling at 2,075 feet per second, which is a really high velocity. I'm gonna test that one. And then I'm going to also test the Buffalo Bore 400 grain jacketed flat nose traveling at 1,675 feet per second. I'm going to test that one as well. So this way we can get a good representation of what some other 500 Magnum loads can do inside of sheetrock. All right, so stay tuned for that test. I'm going to be uploading that shortly after I upload this one. And stay tuned. I'll show you guys what the bullets look like inside of the sheetrock when I found them. Alright guys, so I just wanted to show you some of the bullets that I recovered here. We got our 4 hard casts, and you can see they all look good. They all did what they were supposed to do. They maintained a solid shape here, alright, as you can see. You know, perfect bullets here. You know, this is the 440 grain hard cast from Buffalo Bore. These have about a 21 Burnell hardness, I believe. So pretty interesting. I didn't see any gas checks on these. They must have lost their gas checks somewhere inside of the sheetrock and maybe fell to the ground when I was pulling them out, but I couldn't find any of the gas checks. But they do have gas checks on them. I've tested these bullets quite a bit, and they do have gas checks. You have to have a gas check when you're using hard cast bullets, but look at how big these slugs are. I mean, this thing is just a total sledgehammer, just absolutely massive. And 440 grains, you know, hard cast lead, this would just totally flatten a grizzly bear or moose, bison. You can hunt with these if you wanted to, but they're made for bear defense, and they're just massive slugs. Look at this huge slug here, guys. Big pill, 440 grain pill. That would just totally flatten a grizzly. And then here we have our 500 grain soft point, which is no slouch either. I mean, just look at how nicely it mushroomed and evenly. Okay, it didn't lose any petals or anything. Nice even mushroom. Pretty nice looking bullet here. This is what you want to see. So pretty interesting results here with the 500 Magnum. It didn't penetrate nearly as much as I thought it would, and it seems to me like the sheetrock for some reason just is a little bit more difficult to penetrate for the 500 Magnum than wood is. Again, when I shot this into wood, it had double the penetration of my 44 Magnum. But when I shot it into this sheetrock here, it only had like maybe 10% more penetration or 25% more penetration. So pretty interesting. But now you guys know what a 500 Magnum can do inside of a residential setting. I hope this helps you out somehow. I know it helps me out for sure. And I know that if I'm ever going to have to use one of these rounds for home defense, I'm going to make sure that I don't have any houses around me. And, you know, I live in a rural area anyway, so it doesn't really matter for me. But definitely not something you want to use if you live in an apartment complex or a suburban area. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know what other kind of tests you want me to do. I have some other interesting tests coming up. I want to do another sheetrock test with 300 Win Mag. And I'm still waiting for my 416 Ruger to come back from the custom shop. And once I get that thing back, I'm going to do some really cool tests with that. I want to see if it can penetrate some level 4 body armor. And I'm also going to see if we can penetrate some body armor with the 500. So stick around for those tests and many more. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.
Bye.